represent you, my classmates. I hope I can use these few minutes to encourage you and to reflect on what it means to be here in our grounds, ready to walk across that stage in 8 days. As I look at all of you, I'm overwhelmed by the commitment, the passion, and the talent of this graduating class. I'm genuinely excited to see where all of you find yourselves down the road, and for what this graduating class will collectively accomplish as nurses, teachers, pastors, musicians, and business leaders, to name a few. Many of you could probably relate when I say that in many ways I'm a very different person than when I came to Northwest University. Once a timid freshman who hid in her room to avoid orientation activities. Actually, that last part hasn't really changed. I still avoid them at all costs. All the introverts said amen. In my time as a student here, I've had numerous encounters and experiences that have reshaped the way I think about myself and my purpose, about the world and other people, and most importantly, about God and His character. The one that stands out in my mind most clearly, though, was a simple conversation. Simple, yet profound and perspective-altering in a way that I can say few other things have. So to preface the rest of my speech, I have a story for you about the time that I went to prison. In the fall of 2012, a few debate teammates and I were given the opportunity to participate in a tournament at the Oregon State Penitentiary, a maximum security facility for felons, against students from other universities and some of the inmates themselves. I had no idea what to expect as we pulled up to this awfully menacing concrete structure peppered with security cameras, guards, and chain link fences. All I had to go on was a few episodes of Law and Order and a Hollywood movie here and there. Today is perhaps the first time since then that I felt as nervous. And as such, it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. So picture this scene, if you will. My friend and partner, Abby, and I, two 19-year-old middle-class white girls from a private Christian university, standing in front of both an opposing side in a room full of inmates, arguing that convicted felons should be denied the right to vote. As I tried to sound intellectual and gave my learned analysis about the philosophy of John Locke and the concept of retributive justice, I watched the expressions on the faces of the inmates slowly shift from indignation to amusement, both of which were completely humiliating. I can honestly say that I've never felt so inarticulate and utterly inadequate. These men had faced hardship and had seen things that I'd never been directly exposed to and may never understand. They were staring down the consequences of actions that so many of them felt excruciating guilt and shame for. I had read and theorized about justice and punishment, but they were living these realities. In spite of our painful ignorance, however, I felt nothing but acceptance and respect from these men. So, I come to the reason for my story. Standing around during a break, one of the inmates said something to a group of us that I'll never forget. He said, "I can't tell you how much it means to us that you're willing to come here and debate. It makes us feel more human." I had no idea what he had done to end up in that penitentiary, but I couldn't feel contempt or disdain or anything else that society had told me I should feel towards someone like him. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of pity and sadness. He wasn't a menace to society, and none of the men that I met that day were. I knew in that moment, though, that he was deeply loved and cared for by God, and that day, I glimpsed the message of the gospel. It's not condemnation, but love and a promise of restoration to full humanity. For those brief hours, I got to be a part of that, and it was a pivotal moment in my still growing understanding of my purpose as a Christian. Fellow graduates, friends, this is the work that we've been called into, the transforming and healing power of God's kingdom, which restores human beings to full life. We've been invited to experience this process firsthand in our own lives and especially in the lives of others. We aren't called to be spectators, however. God wants our active participation because He desires that His creation take part in its own redemption. When we read the teachings of Jesus, it becomes clear that He is deeply concerned with the restoration of both the spirit and the body, and He wants His disciples to be characterized by that same concern. He paints a wonderful picture of what this truly looks like in Matthew 25, verses 31 to 40. When the Son of Man comes in His glory, and all the angels with Him, then He will sit on His glorious throne. Before Him will be gathered all the nations, and He will separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And He will place the sheep on His right and the goats on His left. Then the King will say to those on His right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer Him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The King will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did for me." Throughout His ministry, Christ saw and loved those on the margins and restored broken individuals to more abundant life, showing us what God's kingdom looks like. He made people feel worthwhile, known, and loved. In these few verses, Jesus gives us one of the clearest pictures of what it means to call ourselves His followers. It's obvious that He wants His disciples to continue His redemptive work because that's what becomes important in God's final account of all things. My dad once said something to me that he may not know had a significant impact on my thinking as it did, and that is this: God's faithfulness to you is not only for you. Class of 2014, it is my hope that we would take that idea to heart and not only see this as an occasion to reflect on God's faithfulness in our own lives, but also as a chance to be reminded that we aren't the end of the story. In light of this, I hope we see our graduation as a renewed challenge to be open to being used by God in whatever circumstances we find ourselves. May we seek the ways we can be a part of God's redemption of humanity. God doesn't need your degree, but He will use it to advance His kingdom, and that's a beautiful truth. He'll use it to change the lives of people you would encounter for the rest of your lives, in ways that you would have not otherwise been able to participate in. Like this passage from Matthew suggests, that it's often as simple as taking care of basic physical needs. But I also believe it means education, medicine, policy, ministry, and any other work that strives to meet the needs of real people. As we go forward in our respective disciplines, may God open our eyes to see those needs, and may we seek to serve the least of these. Now, in this exciting time of transition, it's easy to get caught up in the anticipation of the future. Don't get me wrong, I'm ready to be done. and it all rightfully has its place in graduation celebrations. But we can't forget or undervalue all that has taken place in the past few years and how we've changed. Although we're sometimes tempted to see our purpose as beginning after we have our diplomas in our hands and land a job, our experiences at Northwest have been part of that purpose all along. We've been participating in the work of God's kingdom as students and members of this community. When we ate in the caf together, played gotcha, talked about life until 2 a.m., struggled through classes, and learned with and from each other, we were part of that process of redemption that allows people to see one another the way God does and to love one another better. So, I'd like to publicly express my gratitude to and for every person in this chapel. First of all, to the individuals in the colorful robes here in front. You're professors in title, but are so far beyond that in many ways. You've given us the grades we've deserved and the grace that we haven't deserved. You've believed in us and seen in us what we did not see in ourselves. I remember the fateful day in May, almost 2 years ago, when a certain professor sat me down in his office and gently persuaded me to switch my major to the one he taught in, coincidentally. Not naming names, of course, but let's just say he thought it would be wise to study more philosophy. Because someone believed in me, that decision made all the difference in my college career. To simply say thank you seems woefully inadequate, but I know I speak for every graduate when I say thank you. You've made the difference between receiving a degree and receiving an education. And of course, to our family and friends, it is safe to say that none of us would be here without your love and support. Thank you for the years you've invested in our lives, for encouraging us when we were discouraged, and for pushing us to achieve our best. We will never be able to repay you what you truly deserve, but I hope that this milestone of graduation is as much a time to recognize and honor you as for all that you mean to us. Finally, to my classmates and fellow graduates, you have made these years worth far more than a piece of paper. Thank you for supporting each other and cheering each other on, especially in these last weeks and months. Congratulations, each one of you, on this remarkable achievement. I'm proud to share it with you and to be one of NU's newest alumni. My prayer for this class is not that it would change the world, but that it would be filled with Christ's love and empowered to participate in the restoration of real human beings. I pray that we would feed the hungry, give water to the thirsty, clothe the naked, welcome the stranger, and visit the sick and the imprisoned. I pray that we would stand in solidarity for justice through suffering, and that people would know who sent us. And I pray that Jesus' own prayer would become ours, and that we would pray and learn to live, your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.